There is one particular issue about the subject of Mormonism and Freemasonry that the historical record is absolutely crystal clear on. And so in the process of expounding the relationships, the implications, the themes, the ideas, the history of the interrelationship of Freemasonry with Mormonism, and we have to face the fact our histories meet and intertwine in Joseph Smith's day. Without question, there is Masonic influence on Joseph Smith. The history and the record is absolutely clear. What that complete relationship is what is being discussed through the literatures from both Masons and Mormons. But there's no mistaking it. Our histories meet and mesh exactly as the history of Catholicism and Freemasonry have hit together and meshed together. The question, the issue is the implications. And I can't help but believe, as a Mormon Mason, that my fellow Mormons have some misunderstandings about the implications of Joseph Smith and Freemasonry. I'm hoping I'm going to add my voice to the issue. One issue we ought to understand is described extremely well by Richard Bushman in his book, Joseph Smith, Rough Stone Rolling. This is a cultural biography of Mormonism's founder. Now this text, 2005, this text is so far beyond and such a vast improvement over Von Brody's No Man Knows My History. It's no contest. I mean, Brody's psychologizing of Joseph Smith fell flat on its face, just exactly like the American historians took her to task for her biography on Thomas Jefferson. They just absolutely flayed her alive with her ridiculous history. It's the same with her view of Joseph Smith. Now, Mormons pointed that out for decades, and then finally she did her book on Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, and that was a subject that the American historians did care about. They didn't review her stuff on Joseph Smith, they accepted it. But when she did the same thing with Thomas Jefferson, they massacred her. Bushman is a vast improvement over Von Brody. And just a brief idea on page 450 that I want you to think about. Now, I'm writing a book on this subject. I will produce several articles on it too, I'm sure, because I really honestly do believe some of the implications about Joseph Smith being influenced by Freemasonry are completely misunderstood by the assumptions which we Mormons hold concerning the concept of revelation, the concept of Joseph Smith being a true prophet, and so on and so forth. I also think that the cultural Mormons, the so-called cultural Mormons, who assume that because Joseph Smith was affected by environmental influences, that refutes the idea that he had genuine revelations and that he really wasn't a true prophet in Israel's long heritage of prophets. I think that assumption is also equally problematical. So on page 450, if Joseph thought of Freemasonry as degenerate priesthood, he did nothing to suppress his rival. Now this is interesting. Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, Martin Harris, one of the three witnesses of the Book of Mormon, Oliver Cowdery's father, Newell K. Whitney, Heber C. Kimball, Willard Richards, John Taylor. I mean, several of the early Mormon prophets were Masons. And they didn't see it as proof that Mormonism was false at all. They didn't stop Freemasonry. They did not stop attending the lodge at Nauvoo once the temple was built and they received their endowments either. Now, if it was a degenerate priesthood, why on earth would they have kept going with it? But they did, to the tunes of thousands of saints became Masons in just a very short time period. He says, once the Nauvoo Lodge was organized, Mormons joined in large numbers. 11 of the 12 apostles became Freemasons. Now that's a vast majority. By October 1842, the 253 members of the Nauvoo Lodge outnumbered the 227 Masons in all of the other Illinois lodges combined, and it continued to grow. Once Mormons received the LDS endowment, they did not simply drop Masonry. They did not cease becoming Freemasons. Franklin D. Richards and Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball, as they crossed the plains and went into Utah, continued their Masonry, even though Brigham Young did not petition for a lodge in Utah at that time. There had become bad blood between the two, and I'll set that out in my book also. The Mormons organized 4 additional Masonic lodges over the next year. In June, less than 7 weeks after bestowing the endowment on the first group of brethren, Joseph Smith actually celebrated St. John's Day in honor of John the Baptist, a Masonic favorite, by riding in procession in a public celebration attended by thousands. In April 1844, the saints dedicated the Nauvoo Masonic Hall, the finest completed building in the city. Masonic instruction would have attracted Joseph. Masonic candidates sought light, a powerful word in Joseph's revelation. Biblical imagery was generously mixed with a conglomeration of symbols, grips, signs, tools, architecture, objects, scriptures, stories, actions, many of them references to the craft of Freemasonry. The outcome was a circle of committed brethren, loyal to each other to the death, forming a bulwark against a wicked world. It instilled virtual brotherhood in the brethren. Masonry did in Utah, in Nauvoo at this time. That has serious implications that I don't think a lot of LDS scholars have analyzed carefully enough. And I'm going to analyze them. Now I'm going to make several videos and bring out materials, as well as I'm probably going to produce several articles, but I'm going to put all the historical information into my book, and that may take me a couple of years, but I'm going to do this. Because like it or not, we are intertwined with Freemasonry as Mormons. And like it or not, for the Freemasons, we are intertwined with Mormonism in our history back in the 1800s, all the way through the William Morgan affair, all the way up till the saints were driven out of Nauvoo. Masonry is intimately involved in that era also, and it is a fascinating subject. But I'm going to try as a Mormon Mason to clarify some of the faulty assumptions I believe some of my Mormon brethren have concerning the implications of Freemasonry on Mormonism and on Joseph Smith and Brigham Young and so on and so forth. So I hope you'll stay tuned. I'll give you more as I can.